Good morning, everybody. I'm Kerry Brix, and I work for a company called Cognitive Code. We make a platform for natural language processing and machine learning. And it's actually a 10-year-old company, but it's been mostly R&D, kind of a mad scientist working on this tech for a long time. But the interesting thing about us, and I'm going to kind of jump around a little bit because there's so many different things to talk about, but our inventor, founder, his name's Leslie Spring, and he came out of the game community, very smart guy, but he saw the need for voice interactions and automated voice kind of tools way before it was popular, you might say. And so he started building a tool that was statistically modeled as opposed to string matching, which is a common form now that Alexa and Watson, those guys all use. And so it gives really a lot of advantages. Frankly, we don't have to go to the cloud. So just kind of why we're important in this space. There's at least 25 companies doing NLP that Goldman Sachs is looking at. We're one of the 25. So there's a bunch of people out there playing, but almost all of them are very different from us technically. And so I just want to bring that up because it's important. And so our ability to create natural language and conversational language is vastly different than, say, Watson. And I worked with Watson for a year prior to joining these guys. So if you guys are doing NLP and you're understanding how you train those systems, the difficulties of actually training those systems, and the chat bots, as that gentleman talked about, there's really big differences. They all kind of look the same on the surface, but they're really not the same on the surface. So we have a pretty much unique system, and that's why people like Goldman Sachs are actually talking to us, because we are an outlier. We've been off the radar, but now they hired me 6 months ago to kind of help go out and build clients and grow the company. So with that, I'll just jump into this, and feel free to interrupt me at any time. I'd like this to be conversational. So again, when you think about it, you imagine an agent that can connect the world to voice. I mean, that's what we're thinking. So we believe that over the next several years, 5 years or so, in fact, we're working on voice browsers. And so again, as I kind of jump around, I'm just going to kind of paint a picture. We are working on what we think is, basically 3.0 of the web world, right? Where we're going to be using voice browsers and we're not going to be typing. And so that some people are talking about that. And Zuckerberg was talking about that a couple of years ago even, so it's not a new idea. But we're actually working on it. And that's not really out yet. We're kind of perfecting it, but we have working models. So for instance, everything we're doing, including automotive, industrial, IoT and IoT, which we're very interested in, entertainment, toys, medical, finance, every single major industry is adopting these things. The last few years has been exploratory. Now they're actually getting budgets, right? And so it's a really exciting time in our space because people are actually budgeting, doing proof of concepts, starting to initiate initial programs that will become wide-ranging and reaching soon. This is really fast. So we're doing a lot of we're kind of touching a lot of different spaces. We're specifically focusing on industrial and IoT, embedded solutions, because we have a very small footprint, which is another very big distinction. We can place our technology on a chip to have fully functional NLP. Not anybody else can even say that, right? And so we can get it down under 5 megs for fully functional. We also work off the cloud and off the grid if you want. We have server versions for data when you're handling a lot of data, like an IoT with sensors, but we actually can work fully functionally like in an auto. And the automotive space right now is insane what they're doing, but that's a whole other discussion. And so, people don't understand what's going on, frankly. They're going to need to, because this is coming like it or not, right? So voice interfaces we're going to be interacting with machines much more by voice and conversationally. So again, the difference, if you're talking to Watson, you have to be absolutely specific and explicit about the words you're using because it doesn't have contextual understanding. So you have to actually program every question and response, kind of a command-based approach. Ours has contextual abilities that understands language. It's actually language agnostic because it works contextually versus literally per words. And so our system of machine learning actually learns context, and it has the ability to take utterances, phrases, parts of sentences and construct language, as opposed to being literal about every word, question, or command you want to get, right? So that's, again, a very huge difference. So we have this ability to have truly conversational language as opposed to very explicit wording, which I can't stress enough is huge. You know, so again, talking about cloud, again, I mentioned this, cloud interactions, the infrastructure needed to support something like Watson. How many of you guys have worked with Watson, for instance? Okay. Watson's an amazing, powerful tool, but it's a marketing campaign you're seeing on TV that's really cool. Ernst & Young here in Dallas, who are Watson global experts and partners, they consider an 18-month cycle to train a system in a major domain with a large vocabulary. So, I mean, again, thinking about specifics, our system can learn much more rapidly and much more contextually with a broader range of language in English and really any language, because we're language agnostic. We currently have localized in 35 languages. And for you to have 150, that's really impressive. I'd love to chat about that. But we're working with speech recognition teams. We're doing partnering with a number of different kinds of groups, including AR and VR. We're currently working with AR programs with people like Nissan. And so it's definitely something that, you know, we're in the middle of that. That also then leads out to edge solutions, another place that we're playing because we're very strong, because we can work without the cloud. That gives you security. We have complete security if you're not doing cloud-based things for on-prem. And so again, Watson, Alexa, Microsoft, Google, all those guys have to do interactions that are hackable. We can give you a secure solution. So that's the nice thing. You guys care about cybersecurity. We all do, of course. Everybody's getting hacked. And we actually can provide a solution that's not hacked if you're not interacting with the cloud, right? So you can have interactions securely, truly securely. But that kind of stuff matters. But also the part of it is that we're working with headgear. The other thing we believe, not only are people all going to be walking around with AR glasses within 5 years or less, not totally immersive, you know, VR. I'm not that, you know, we care about VR, but I'm not that into it. I still get nauseous, you know, if I wear them very long. So there's some issues, but Walmart's already using VR in training, right? And so these things are no longer just kind of fun toys or game related. They're moving into industrial applications very quickly. One of the things the Nissan Renault company is doing is we've been kind of playing with a team that is doing instructional for service technicians. So you've got a HoloLens on. In fact, it works fabulously. We've already integrated with HoloLens. You sit there, use your HoloLens, you see a 5-year-old Nissan Leaf, you know how to fix the brakes. You don't have to memorize all that stuff anymore, right? So the technicians can be augmented incredibly nicely, and that all is coming on too. Say like service technicians, absolutely is going to be commonplace in a few years. You know, it'll take a while for these things to really spin out into the market, but it's happening. And so we're working on that stuff. So we're talking to a number of different headgear companies, for instance. There's quite a few out there, but RealWear, Discus, HoloLens, guys like that. So that too, you know, whether you like that stuff or not, it's coming, and we're all going to be wearing some kind of augmented glasses in a few years, and we'll be having voice interactivity and interactions as well as data, right? I mean, that stuff's definitely coming, and we're working with that, knowing that it's coming. So our SILVIA platform is actually the name of our platform, you know, fast, easy, secure, all that stuff I've been talking about. But the real thing is this was designed to be a component application. So we already have about 200 APIs that we work with. And so we're based on Unity. We also have, if you're really hardcore programming, we have C++, C#. So you can augment this thing and enhance it and customize it. We also can do some custom work. We're really trying to be a licensing company more than a production and development company. Right now we're working on a number of POCs that I can talk a little bit about. But the IoT space, which we're focused on here, we're very, very interested in, because all those sensors have to then be measuring something and feeding that data to be analyzed. So we can be an interface, give me those reports, tell me about the diagnostics. Northrop Grumman has used this for 3 years, and that's in military vehicles, right? So that's really about diagnostics, how the engines are running. We've got some videos I can share with you after if you want. But Northrop is using that specifically to have diagnostics on. They were first working with cars, but there's obviously military applications.
Good question. So do you have say for example, I have a couple of databases that I want to run natural language queries on. How good is your conversion of a natural language query to a SQL command?
Well, the language is good. I mean, speech rec's getting better and better, so you're depending on what speech rec system you're using. But it depends on your software. I mean, you know, we may or may not be able to connect to it now. But if you're trying to pull data and ask queries, you do queries,
exactly.
you have JSON queries or something, we do that stuff. Watson can do that stuff too. I mean, that's not real special, but it's an interface so you can talk to your databases and ask for, give me the sales report for third quarter for North America or something like that, right? That's kind of what we're doing. We're a voice interface primarily. We do adapt to a lot of different kind of use cases. So we're the interface to this stuff, right? We're the bridge between human and machines, or machine to machine, or machine to networks, right? Those are kind of three spaces. So people like Nissan, that's what we're talking to them about. We're talking about in-car experience, diagnostic solutions, factory floor process improvement, a number of other things, right? So there's a lot of ways you use these applications. They're not just, well, customer service is common now. We're not even in that space because there's too many players, but in terms of voice interaction, just think you're replacing a lot of those keystrokes. That's the real thing. Instead of using keyboards and having your hands busy, this is really important for hands-free environments. Offshore oil rigs, you know.
Yeah, have you been getting any interest from the medical community? I know that one of the real criticisms about EMR systems now is, I'm sure you've heard complaints about this.
Yeah, we're not really pursuing medical that much. We've talked to guys like that, but it's a difficult place to be in because certifications and legality, right? You know, I mean, there's a lot of issues, and so.
There's also the issue of liability.
Yes, a lot of
If you
liability.
get the speech wrong.
Yeah, and companies like Nuance are in that space for transcription and other things. I mean, we're not trying to compete with Nuance. They have a giant market share in a very specific niche. They're trying to play in what we're doing, but they don't have as good a product, frankly. I mean, they have a great product for what they've done for 20 years, but they're not the same as what we're doing. We certainly respect their scale and success. You know, so our real goal, our mission is to make what we're doing ubiquitous, right? Because we know it's going to be, and there's a lot of players, but the advantages we have, about working off the grid is huge, right? So like we'll work with a toy manufacturer right now to do toys. Kids can interact with toys, right? And they're not going up to the cloud to download and get hacked with some wacko that's looking at kids' conversations, right? I mean, I work a lot with Disney and Nickelodeon and other kids-related things, so those are very sensitive issues. But the toy guys, they're doing some fun stuff. And entertainment, we're also talking with Warner Brothers, for instance.
Kerry?
Sorry.
You have a question?
Yeah, I just had a question. So, you guys don't need any public interface at all then?
No. I mean, by public interface, in what way do you mean that?
Well, you were saying that you guys don't use anything that's in the cloud.
No.
So like on-prem, you would have to have some sort of public interface. You guys don't use any public interface?
Well, ours
at
is
all?
an interface. I mean, we latch on to whatever solutions you're using, right? We become the interface. So we don't need a secondary or some connected interface, right? We're replacing, or we're becoming the interface to these interactions. It's about voice interaction as opposed to keystroke stuff, right? And in terms of web, with WordPress we're also talking to GoDaddy right now, for instance, because they have web solutions. We're talking to e-commerce providers, because that's another place. Right now, customer service and e-commerce is really important, and Zendesk and about 50 other companies are doing that. 30 of them I talked to last year are automating, right? So we don't want to play in that space. We could, but we just don't want to put the resources toward that. IoT, industrial applications are the hottest market for us, we feel, right now. Others, they all have value. I mean, insurance and banking and finances, there's a ton of companies doing fintech with voice right now. We have one client in Singapore that's doing a very interesting application. I'll get to that in a minute. But no, we become the interface. I mean, we don't have to work with something else, you know what I'm saying? I mean, I'm not sure exactly how to phrase that differently. So again, 10 years ago, as I said, we were doing this before it became kind of de jour, which it is now. I mean, there's hundreds of companies working in AI, and also AI is a very broad term. Data analytics, marketing applications, AR, VR, there's lots of different parts. We're very specific to the voice interactions. Our pipeline is growing. This is a little bit of a kind of investor deck, but talking about some of the advantages I was talking about, the interactions with customers, machines, streamlining workflow. There's going to be a lot more of this, and this also gets into the whole idea of process RPA and robotic process automation. It's an area I care about, because if you guys are really paying attention to what's going to be happening over the next 5 years, 3 to 7 years, there's going to be millions of jobs lost because of task replacement. And this is not some harbinger of death, but there's going to be a lot of people over at State Farm that won't have jobs that are claims adjusters right now. Anything that's very easily automated, which is things like claims adjusting, tax, real estate, law, firms, dozens and dozens and dozens they're going away. And we're working with people like Accenture and Cognizant and other major integrators. That's a target we're really going after because they understand what we're doing.
You bring up an interesting point about replacing claims adjusters with AI. What steps are you taking to make sure to cut down on the fraud? Because it's the human element, which a lot of times the detective seems to be a fraudulent claim. It's like 6 cents. It's not anything specific.
Well, I mean, I guess the easiest way to put it, if you can have your system ingest 5 million examples of all the outlier cases, it's going to spot that stuff pretty good. But bank already uses so much AI. Banking uses so much AI. American Express, those guys, they've been super leaders in this stuff, and they keep it quiet because it's so serious. But I mean, that's it. You look at several million documents and you find the models. And most loan applications, mortgages, claims, they're pretty straightforward, and they can spot the outliers. They're already proving that the machines do a better job than the humans, and they do much more productivity in terms of numbers per day, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm not really preaching this. It's just a reality. And so people that aren't paying attention to this yet or just don't even have a clue what's going on, they're going to be shocked. And I actually went to an event with Hughes and Luce a couple of years ago that really got me kind of on this track, because they had a guy from England, the CEO of a company, doing this. And this was all attorneys. I was one of the few guys in there that wasn't an attorney. I just happened to be on the mailing list. But he was outlining specifically the workflow and the work processes. So, a typical process may have 10, whether it's white collar or industrial, 10 steps in that process. Right now, you can automate 2, 3, 4 of them, maybe, not all 10 of them. There still has to be some human interactions here and there, but the point is, if you can automate 3 or 4 of them, that equates to X number of jobs, where 500 people are doing that currently, you get it down to about 30, right, that are managing the systems as opposed to doing the actual processes. So this is absolutely coming very fast, quietly, but now not really quietly. Bill Gates is talking about this. He's talking about taxing robots because he understands that there's going to be millions and millions of dual family homes in Plano that aren't going to be making their house payment in 7 years if they don't adjust, okay? I mean, I hate to be negative, but, everybody in this room could be impacted. So one thing about competition, these are just a few examples, names but these are all the things that our system actually does. On-device, object-oriented tools, a lot of APIs, scalable, C#, on down the line, language neutral. So, but you notice, Alexa is really a crappy software solution. It's a cute little gadget at home. Walmart, I was in a conversation with right after Christmas. It's a loss leader product. They're not even making money on selling them. So they've sold 30 million of them, but the retailers are not even making money on Alexa. That product they were predicting will be gone in 3 years, right? It's just going to be embedded in smart homes. And smart homes that's another area. We've got a group in Brazil that have been using our tools to build smart city solutions with 200 use cases in Sao Paulo, right? So these things are pretty interesting individually as well as collectively. But what we really do have, we really, Google Home, all the names Watson, they've got some great tools. And again, if you're some mega scale and you've got millions and millions of dollars, Watson may be a solution that's okay. But people like EY and others, they're telling us they've been very disappointed with Watson's performance because machine learning training is extremely difficult and it's inexact, right? So, I can give you names of EY. You don't have to believe me, but these are real stories.
So how does your system train? Because when you have to build
you do have to still build. You have to build a language, but you don't have to be so explicit to every single yes or no. Watson, for instance, doesn't understand plural. If you say, I want to do this task, you program that in. You actually train the machine literally, I want to do this task, or what a response is. You can't say tasks. It doesn't understand the idea of a plural unless you actually program that in. Those kinds of things are very limiting, and they make the training very long. As I said, EY believes it's 18 months to effectively train Watson on complex large vocabulary, like for a Boeing or somebody where you have, complex systems. Something like medical where you have terms that are very difficult. And that's why Nuance has done okay, because they've spent millions of years trying to understand medical terminology because it's so complex and original, right? Ours is conversational. Everybody in this room could train it. You don't have to be a programmer to use our tools, okay? It's actually designed more for a staff person that's articulate. It could be a copywriter or other types of
So
creative
they're the
folks.
ones that are training, they can train your system?
Absolutely. Who again?
Like, I'm just trying to see how your model gets trained for a specific, say for example, I am a IoT company, right?
Yeah.
And I have specific terms for that, like, say for example, how many gallons of water did this house have?
Yes.
There's a lot of context around it. And how does your model learn that specific context for that particular
Well, you
company?
do have to put in a lot of phrases and
Okay.
words and build language, but you don't have to be so explicit because it has inference engine
Yeah.
capabilities. So it can start understanding concepts. It's really based on concepts as opposed to specific words, and that's why it can work in multi-languages, because it's about concept and context, and it infers, and so you start thinking like water, volume, amounts. There's a number of meanings within that intent, or right. So you do have to program. It takes time. You put words and dialogue in, but it learns and it has the ability to take that information and understand relationships between other words as opposed to explicit every single matching of a question and a query and an answer, right? So it's very different, and it actually works quite well. So in terms of the markets we're going after, enterprise, process automation, smart technologies, all the things I'm talking about here. And the ones we're really focusing on are enterprise, as I mentioned, the consultancies. Yeah, go ahead.
Quick question. In fact, I had the same question as Rich, and there is something else to add to that. So, you mentioned earlier that this is an on-chip solution, is that correct?
It doesn't have to be, but it can be.
Okay, but how do you update the models? Once the model is baked in onto the chip, you have to make some kind of OTA update. Are you doing an OTA over the air?
Well, you definitely can have a web connectivity, yes, and cloud access, for instance, if you're pulling data.
So you do have cloud access.
Yes, server or cloud access.
It's optional, right?
It's optional, yeah, it's not mandatory. That's the
Okay,
difference.
but my question more is here, to do any kind of training, you're going to be doing the training with some kind of hookup to the cloud. It's not on-device training.
You can put on-device training. In fact,
train
that's
the
part of
models.
the solution that we're talking about, is that training is part of what we're doing. Instructional, you can put all that on a chip if it's a finite amount of things you're trying to teach somebody. It just depends how much updates you need to do, how often you need to update it, if you're trying to pull data and analyze data. I mean, there's a lot of different applications.
I know. I'm trying to understand your point when you said that you do not need the cloud. There was one slide where you said you don't need the cloud, it's on device. I think that might be for to what extent is it really on device?
It could be 100%, completely on device. If you got an appliance,
The training of the model is also on device, with no connection to the net.
the training to use the tool?
Yes.
Absolutely.
To train the language model itself. To train the language model itself.
Well, you'd have to do that. You'd have to do that before you put it on the chip.
That is my point. So you are using some kind of with the cloud-based training for the models.
It can be on a local network.
Yeah, it's
It
local,
doesn't
yeah,
have to be
and that's the
cloud.
key, yes. Especially like for offshore rigs. Oil and gas is an area that we're talking to consultants about. Because edge solutions is an area that we're trying to focus on and play. IoT, edge solutions in particular, because that's where our local matters. Right, I mean, if you want to go to the cloud, you want to pull data, like we've integrated with Tableau, for instance, right? So if you want to pull data and deal with that.
I'm just trying to understand the implications of the comments you made on the earlier slide.
Yeah.
When you say on device and you're not using the cloud, are you doing the training of the models itself on the device itself, or are you having to go to a backend server? It seems like you have to go to a backend server, but your point is.
I may not have that answer right. I could ask to find out more, but we're doing things that are local and used locally, right? So however that data gets into the chip, I'm not the engineer to tell you that answer.
Okay, because if you're saying that you're completely on device, you're going to be limiting yourself in terms of how you're going to train the natural language models.
Yeah, right.
Okay.
But also, a lot of the people we talk to have finite, they don't have intentions to keep updating, right? There's applications you do put it all in there and you're not needing to go to the cloud, right? I mean, there's a whole range of applications that we can support.
Sure.
Okay, in terms, well, we're talking to ARM and Intel. Okay, I mean, you know, again, I'm not the engineer that's working this down, so I totally admit that. But, you know, those kind of guys see the value in what we're doing, right? In fact, we have Intel as an advisor in our company. So chip manufacturers were very interested in this because we have such a small footprint that we're language agnostic. And the security issue makes that really important. The fact you don't have to go to the cloud and potentially get hacked.
Sure. Now,
Right.
When we talk about machine learning, you know, and what I do, I mean, there's scenarios where you only have to train it once.
Yes.
You know, it becomes an embedded device.
Right.
But there are other scenarios, you know, like in remote patient care or something, where you want the local system to be able to update its logic. Right.
Absolutely.
And so you need to have, I mean, you have to do the really heavy machine learning in the cloud. You can't do it in the device, but you can extract the policies, you know, from the cloud and then download them into the device.
Yeah, and also we absolutely work with servers, right? I mean, obviously in IoT you're taking data, and we're an interface between that device. You know, you're asking the device for the response. You know, how's the machine working? And SASN, in fact, I was talking to them, seeing them last week. They were showing IoT basically electric motors of grinders, right, with the sensors, and then they'd unplug or wiggle one of the wires, and so the thing you'd see in real time, the analytics coming back that the, you know, grinder 3 had some kind of problem, or they were predicting failure. That was about failure prediction. So, you know, we're the ones saying, tell me about grinder number 3, what's wrong with the thing, right? Oh, you know, the RPMs are too low, or, you know, whatever that issue is. So we're an interface between machines and humans, taking away the keyboards and things like that. That's our purpose.
Yeah, I don't mean to really interrupt your presentation, just one more point.
Sure.
How, I mean, it all comes down to the size of the speech vocabulary. And
Yes, that's a matter.
The complexity of the language model. It's a
Yes.
very simple language model. You might be able to do it everything on device. But if you're trying to support free form and natural speech, then I would be very interested to see how your system works. I would think you need to have some kind of updates from the cloud for it to work with a much larger
Well, that's a
vocabulary.
fair, yeah, that's absolutely a fair assumption.
So it all comes down to
We're
what
working
size.
with, we're actually talking to 4 different speech rec companies. They all have various value, but the one that's doing both the best for us, they thought a few months ago they could only get down, say, 250,000 word vocabulary. I mean, you could be real specific. For very large vocabularies, that could be a couple hundred megs of information, right? You're not going to stick that on a chip.
Exactly.
But most things that we're doing, you don't need 250,000 words. Okay, if it's 20,000, you know, it's 500 in a order entry solution. It's 50,000 in maybe an industrial thing, right? And so and so they have impressed us and themselves because their CEO was thinking that he might get down to 100, but he was hedging. Now, over the last 3 months, they've been able to optimize to about 55 megs with very large, like 50 to 100,000 word vocabularies. So these are very specific things we care a lot about, and you're right. But the point is, we're not going to boil the ocean, and that's Intel. Like Intel thinks about the fastest world, unbelievable processing, right? That's not what we're not that, right? We're something else, right? But ARM is like perfect for us to integrate with those guys, and NVIDIA is another one spending a lot of money right now on what we're doing, right? So it just depends on the company, what their focus is. There's a lot of different issues. But we have a very versatile tool, and these are all areas that we mentioned healthcare, but we're not really chasing that, for instance, right? You know, somebody came to us with a good case, we might talk. So, but you know, here's kind of what we're doing. You know, our strategy. We're going to grow a lot the next few years, and you guys don't care as much about that. Key players here. Founder, these guys are ex-game people mostly, but Leslie is really the kind of the brilliant guy who dreamed this stuff up. Very interesting guy, he's fun. Again, a little background, so that's so much on that. But now we're going to jump into IoT, and sorry it took long to get here. You know, basically, you guys know IoT, you know it better than I do, but these are the kind of areas, all these areas are going to be impacted, they already are, right? There's billions of sensors, there's going to be billions and billions more. So everything's being monitored, from a major airliner jet to anything. I mean, everything is getting sensors in them now. If there's a reason to monitor and track or watch its performance, see if it's failure. So you guys know that. We want to be the interface that's connecting that interactions. You know, so again, NLP, it can be used for, remote, local devices, the sensor arrays. We have a guy that's doing nothing but IoT for us right now. And this guy, he's already hooking up all sorts of things, us to them, and it's just working very fluidly, luckily. But, like right here, sensor readings all the way to appliances. So the range of opportunity is vast. And we also believe it's going to be ubiquitous. So that, talking about use cases, you got your enable boards, lots of sensors, so you connect the NLP to both interact and control these devices through voice. You're an industrial factory floor. Nissan, for instance, the example I use is a use case. You're on the assembly line, you get a bad gasket. Right now they have to write a ticket, do a work order. It takes a few minutes or however long it takes to get that new replacement gasket down. They believe that using voice instead of a manual thing where you have to have about 5 commands to make that process go, if they can save a minute or 2 minutes on that times hundreds of times a year, they know there's a huge savings there, right? So, it seems incidental, but it's not to them. It's like really important, and they're willing to put money behind that to prove it, right? So that's a very real use case. I mean, I can tell you more real ones we're talking about. So this is the demo stuff we're doing now. Basically building sample boards, doing testing just to prove it, and it's a part of the thing we're really going to do well with. But again, if you're going out for data, JSON, there's a lot of different ways we can exchange data, right? All the standard ways you guys do, we can work with all those kinds of things. So, that to us is really, it's just a must-have. But why the demo board? I mean, this is specific to you guys. It gives engineers ways to perform tests and run these things, right, without blowing out whole full-blown production models. And it's a very simple thing. You guys know testing better than I do. But we are an edge solution, and this is really where we're playing. So we're not trying to take on Watson with some mega thing. A good example for retail. Last year I was talking with Michael's stores. They're 100 million a year IBM client. We've presented a solution that $40,000 we could have had them doing advanced searches and other kinds of things, multimedia applications and interactions. And it would have been maybe $40,000 project for us. They went with IBM anyway because they're so embedded. And IBM, who we're partners with, didn't even, they didn't even give us the time of day. But they were willing to spend, many times the money, 50 times the money with IBM for the solution that we could have provided, right? So there's still a lot of blindness out there, and blind faith, you might say. If you guys are working with Watson, you know the difficulties. If you don't, I'd say shop around. And I like IBM a lot. I mean, I'm not anti-IBM at all. But again, about the natural intuitive diagnostic systems, that's where we think we play. You can talk to the machine. What the heck's wrong with turbine 10? And it tells you. And that's exactly what Northrop has been doing for 3 years with this. They branded it Sadie. They named their thing Sadie instead of our SILVIA title. But but this is the kind of thing. The predictive stuff, seeing that failure, knowing that we assume in 50 more hours this thing's going to fail. That again is huge. You don't have the downtime. You can do preventative planned maintenance. It doesn't, the turbine doesn't blow up and ruin the rest of the engine. I mean, there's all sorts of advantages you guys understand, I'm sure well.
Excuse me, quick question. So do you have like an engagement model that you're going through as to like how does this, say for example, I want to train based on 10,000 sentences or something like that. How do I get your software either on AWS?
Yeah, we have evaluation. We allow evaluation. You got to sign agreements and stuff. Okay. We work with NDA. Everything we do is under NDA, and we do provide eval kits and give you some time limits on that. And you're happy, happy to play with it. We restrict things like the Brazilian guys we're working with. They were doing this in Portuguese, and they didn't really believe in paying very much. So we kind of cut them off. But it's just the kind of thing that we want to get this in people's hands, but it's very valuable tools, right? So you got to understand the process. Yeah, I mean, if your company would like to do an eval with this, we could do that. Yeah, but it's definitely under some control. I think you guys know this stuff, and again, I'm just verbalizing, but something's not working, you can interact with the machine. It's about talking to machines, right? It's a simple fact. It's a voice interface. Same thing with browsers. That's why we're talking to companies like GoDaddy and working with WordPress. WordPress has something like 75 million websites using that tool. If we become a de facto interface and replace the current browsers, that's a big market, right? And that, in fact, is what I'm very excited about because it's getting monetized very easily. Now, this is my last slide, but I can talk more. But this one, this talks about stuff we're doing right now. Virtual sales agent, that's a neat process. That's for automotive, right? Using AR, we're working with an AR partner in England. They've got this great 3D models, and you can open the door and sit in the car and do all sorts of nice stuff. Then we talk, hey, show me the color scheme, show me the leather seats, tell me about the engine performance. I mean, so you can, that's the whole idea of that one. You're going to be a virtual sales agent telling you information about, that's a Nissan product. The voice ordering, which is another interesting one, and this is the one that kind of talks about task replacement. Okay, and that gets to your question about vocabulary. How many words do you need to say McDonald's ordering? 400 or 500, it's not very many, right? There aren't a lot of variations, or you're not gonna be asking about baseball or heart attacks to McDonald's, right? And so, it's a limited vocabulary, very easy to construct, and the permutations are minor, right? A particular, two different groups are talking to us about that now, a retail consulting firm and one of the major integrators. The major integrator that works 20 to 25 world's biggest fast food chains, they believe they can go sell this solution with our embedded technology for $1 million a pop. Okay, right. And they're very confident they can because they do their strategy and run their IT solutions. So that alone, you can monetize this as a company. You know, that where the rubber hits the road, right? It isn't just a cool thing or a nice to have. We're going to be ordering automatically to every one of the, you know, when you go to fast food and many retailers very soon, because these guys, the guys in Chicago work with Walmart, Target, Wendy's, Coca-Cola, McDonald's, need I say more. The world's leading brands are doing this stuff right now in prototypical form, right? So, you know, this isn't me, this is them. The FinTech stuff, and I'll talk to that in a minute, because this is a different variation of what we're doing. Because we can do advanced search, right? And contextual search, which is a neat advantage to just pure keyword searches. This particular financial group is a high-performing group in Singapore and New York. They're also interested in investing with us, so not only do they like us as a tool, they like us as a potential investment. What they're doing, they take 1,000 bits of data every day from Goldman, from Morgan Stanley, other highest level of investment information in the world. They want us to help them boil it down to 10 to 20 particular key points on a subject each day. So it's contextual, it's natural language understanding, it's then the ability to distill and aggregate that information very specific to a request of that day, like Tesla, one example. They want to look at historical data on Tesla versus what's going on now with a whole bunch of variables. So this is about the analysts being very involved with coming up with use cases that they want to define, right? And then specifically have our tool go in, find that stuff out of a field of 1,000, both structured and unstructured data fields, emails, reports, white papers, whatever they may be, but specific to go find that stuff, distill it down to the best of we help them decide based on their criteria and rules to boil that down to 10 to 20 different things that they will then present to their clients on that given day. So that's a very time-critical, mission-critical type solution. It's different than most of the stuff we're talking about, frankly, but it's a very interesting application. And these particular guys believe that once we build it for them, that many other major investment houses will want it. And they're willing to let that IP go out, and so we and they can monetize it. Yippee. That's the kind of partners we're looking for, frankly. You know, ones that aren't just thinking we're just some software vendor, right? Because we're really an invention company. We're very interested in radio, and this is a room full of radio guys. Would love to talk to you guys about how we can take that, what is considered old technology, that's still in great use with EMS and other kinds of emergency and other services. There's still a lot of that out there, especially in oil and gas fields, right? Accenture, in fact, is very interested in this because they touch that. And so, you know, even tying to that kind of interaction, which seems like old school, but it's very real world. And there's no latency with the stuff we do when it's local. I mean, that's the thing too. You go to the cloud, there's latency, and like it or not, right? And conversationally, latency is a bad thing. If you have to wait, like you use Watson, it can take a few seconds. So you're asking her, you know, do a reply and response, or question and responses. You know, that latency gets to be a pain in the butt.
Yeah, well, it's still,
it's still worthwhile for you guys to consider, you know, a server-centric architecture. I mean, the stuff that's going on with 5G, you know, pushing things out the edge is going to mitigate a lot of that.
I totally agree, but I'm just saying, this is real, this is today. Yeah, well, we hear that from the clients, not.
Yeah.
But the other thing is virtual kiosks, there's a lot of marketing applications too, that's just starting to come on. More and more agencies are being asked to do AR experiences. And so, you know, we've already done some stuff with Warner Brothers, with Lego Batman. You know, so imagine you got to, you know, if you saw the Dr. Pepper thing they did about 2 seasons ago for Halloween, you scan a couple of cans, a little monster pops up. I thought that was a waste of money because probably nobody even did it or used it. But now with all the AR kits coming out with Apple and others, it's becoming very, very commonplace. That's why I'm saying in 3 or 4 years, everybody's going to have AR augmented eye sets. I mean, it's not going to be Google Glass either. Their interface was so horrible. It was ridiculous. But smart cities matter, and then mobile. The mobile stuff, we do work with mobile, Android and iOS, you know, so you can put this on devices as well. We have one group we're talking about right now in LA that's their whole thing. They want to use mobile devices and have interactivity for kids' entertainment, right? And that's actually for foreign markets. So there's a lot of different cool things going on. Any other kind of questions? I mean, that's kind of running through it.
Just as an example, so I'm clear in what you do is in the financial area. If I have a database of investment parameters, you talked about an example. There's a lot of analytics that go into financial investment, et cetera. You're just providing the interface, and someone else would do the analytics behind it that we were talking about.
Right, and we work with different analytics tools like Tableau, for instance. MicroStrategy is another one we've been talking to a lot as a partnering group, and but that's sometimes we'll have to write the code for that. You know, we can't just plug into everything, obviously. So there may need customization. Like Tableau, it took a while to work that out, right?
So is this a plugin in Tableau that's available right now?
There could be. We did this over a year ago. At the time, there wasn't. In fact, we're not a big development shop, right? We're doing partnerships. We've got a team in San Francisco that's doing some very interesting work. They have 2 or 3 guys dedicated to work with us on things, and so we're somebody that match skills to need, because we're a small company, under 15 people, and we don't intend to grow to be a 1,000-person company, right? We're looking for both technical and development partners, and we want to sell this as a license deal, right? So we're licensing software as opposed to be we do some fee for service as needed, and, you know, like the POCs we're doing because we have to control that, but we're definitely looking for partners. But AR and VR, for us, the same thing. There's 2 different groups we're already working with. We're going to get a lot more of that going on. Right, because this is a superior solution. I mean, that's the thing, is the message I'm trying to leave is that you can go look at every other, you know, anybody. In fact, if you're curious, I've got a very interesting printed piece here that compares us and those other 24 top NLP groups from Goldman Sachs. It's a Goldman Sachs piece, so I can't let it out, but I can show you guys if you're curious. And there's a lot of investment in this space right now. It's pretty hot. We're doing a fundraise right now. Yeah, man.
So you guys don't do any in-house development?
Oh yeah, but we're a small team, and we're only focused on this. We're not. Our roadmap is really about bringing more kinds of sensing.
Believe like your plugins, what you were saying is your plugins get developed by other companies?
It could go either way. I mean, it just depends. And right now we have about 175 APIs, right? So there's a lot of things we can connect to right now. But we run into, every day we're running into things where we have to do some tweaking. I mean, like this AR thing we're doing for Nissan, we're working jointly with them because there's some problems with iOS, right? And so, like our Android thing is really clean, but iOS is still a little bit buggy, so we're working with them on that. And that's in real time right today going on, right? So we're not averse to doing development, but that's just not our primary business, right? And we want to get this in the hands of a lot of smart people so they can evolve their own solutions. But our thing is really about bringing in more sensing, vision. We're going to be getting more involved with vision and facial recognition and other kinds of applications, emotional recognition. That's a big thing that a lot of people are talking about, is intent and emotion. And Watson already has pretty good
voice, or does it also do text?
What does?
Do you process
Yes,
everything?
absolutely can do text, yes. But we're everybody can do text. I mean, that's more common. But good voice solutions are less common right now. And I don't consider Alexa, for instance, a good solution, right? If you try to work with it, it can do skills. You can do your skills through their models, but try to do natural language, it drops off immediately. I mean, people But we're also talking a lot of smart groups, you know, Samsungs and Intels of the world, a lot of those in the Accenture types. So where the feedback we're getting is we get vetted competitively against the other 10 or 12 big companies, you know, we place well. I mean, that's what matters to me, right? We're not coming in fourth or fifth, we're usually the only one doing what we say, right? And I know that there's a group called Parlo, I know their CEO out in San Francisco. They also talk about on-prem, and in fact, I hope to see him next week when I get out there just to reconnect. He's a cool guy. So there's people, Qualcomm's trying to do the stuff we're doing right now. Okay, they're trying to do NLP on a chip. So there's importance in the space we're in. And we'll have competitors, but right now we have not found one anywhere. Neither has Cognizant or Accenture. Right, so we definitely have a unique solution, and that's thanks to Leslie's brilliance. Right, he dreamed this up before the cloud existed. That's why we're not a cloud solution, which is coincidental. He's lucky enough to be funded by a couple of guys in New York for 10 years and fiddle with this thing and come up with a real product.
Question on the security side. So you mentioned earlier everything on the chip, so obviously there's security from the physical aspect, but from a voice interface, just as an example for Alexa, we'll pick on them from it. There was a late night TV show where somebody was making fun of Alexa, and it actually said Alexa order, and next thing you know, there was a massive number of
I know,
right?
isn't that a beautiful thing?
Yeah, and so it was brilliant from his perspective.
Yeah.
But you know, it's whenever we start talking about in the IoT, how are you doing the voice recognition as to who has access to be able to pull those reports or data from those sensors?
Well, one way is just by putting a layer of who has access, right? Having a way to get in.
With voice?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, you do it through voice commands. Right? You have to have some keyword or something, right? But, I mean, so you can build that kind of
So,
security.
well, the reason why I'm asking, there's a medical company out of India that's been working on a lot of the voice recognition for medical purposes. To tell whenever somebody coughs, being able to discern between that being a sick cough versus just a cough. So I'm thinking, obviously, there's got to be some kind of a footprint or a fingerprint, I would say, to your voice, just like there's a fingerprint to the end of your finger. So doing some kind of a voice fingerprinting for.
Yeah, we haven't really done that, but people do. There's definitely voice recognition that takes people's exact voice prints. Yeah, that technology exists. I mean,
So are you
we haven't had to deal with
using
that, frankly, but yeah, that could be an issue, especially in open environments.
Like in an industrial environment.
Exactly.
You don't want just.
The sound muffling, the other things we've been more paying attention to is like sound muffling in factory, right? So it recognizes words, not just background noise and stuff like that. So that is something we care about. I think we have pretty good suppression right now. But we're not a voice rec company, so there's a particular group in Washington, the one I mentioned, that's getting their optimization down to 50 megs for larger vocabularies. But again, that's not the security issue you're talking about. But you know, you can absolutely recognize people, and you can design that in or add that skill. The other is that, you know, voice is something that we want this to be an open type of interface, right? So we're not really focusing on security. The security is more that you can use on-prem and things like that where you're not going to the cloud, right? So it's just the idea of secure physically more than worrying about the voice security. Right? We might have to worry about that in some cases. Fair question. Anything else? It's fun talking to you guys.
The speech recognition engine is on chip, right?
It will be, yes, it isn't currently, and that's why we're getting optimized to as small as we can. Our goal is to get it down equivalent to where you can get it on a chip. Right now, it's not.
So right now your speech recognition is in the cloud, and then the output of the speech recognition goes to your chip. Is that what you're saying?
Well, yes, and that's what we are working with a specific company on. Others we're doing more about multiple languages than the optimization of grammar. But that's not our business. You know, there's a lot of guys doing that. But they do have big vocabularies. But that's a really good point, because again, for the audience to understand that if you have a couple hundred megs, you know, we may be a 5 meg footprint, but if you got a couple hundred megs of voice, you know, vocabulary data that you have to deal with, then that's something you have to deal with, right? But we are very much trying to optimize that, because we like the idea of the edge solutions. That's where we play well. And you know, we're not trying to. We are actually a product development company, so we do care a lot about applying this to real world applications, and that's something we'll do more of too. Our CEO is very much into wanting to build some products out. But those are probably going to be more entertainment and game related, right? First rounds, and the headgear. The headgear is going to be a very good thing for us. HoloLens, Unity based, you plug right in. We've already got that demonstrated. It didn't take long at all. And our training, this is important too, is much, much faster. We did the entire Batman Lego deal for Warner Brothers in 3 weeks. So we can build prototypes very, very quickly, whereas others can't, right? I mean, that's a real advantage we have right now, is that machine learning is very advantageous to us right now because of the ease and simplicity by non-technical people.
If I could add an analogy, so as you're saying that, kind of what I'm thinking of is like in a car with the GPS systems. They would be the actual system in the head unit that never changes, but you update the maps via DVD all the time, year by year. So the language would be the DVD in the back of the maps, but their part of it never changes. Is that fair?
That's very fair. And that, in fact, we're talking to the auto people a lot right now, as I mentioned Nissan, and that's going to be a really interesting world, because if you guys weren't at CES a couple, 2 months ago, they were demonstrating all sorts. I mean, there were a lot of car guys, and they were showing autonomous cars that don't have steering wheels, brakes, or gas pedals, and they're all talking 2020 for a launch. Uber and others right now are already doing live tests in Arizona right now and in Atlanta, so they're doing 18-wheeler trucks. The first round of stuff coming out is going to be trucks and delivery vans. So there's going to be a lot of that hitting the roads very soon, now and soon, right, onward. So I think there's so many cool changes. IoT is one of that, and IoT is a cool space we want to be in, because we do believe voice is going to be the interface that we're all moving towards no matter what, whether we do it or somebody else. That's what's really happening. And we consider that Web 3.0, right? That's why we're working with browsers, because we're going to be the browser of the future, right? And the future being, soon, right? So you aren't going to be typing into Google, you're going to be saying, give me the reports on whatever, right? Or open up the news page or whatever you're looking at, right? So that, we just assume that's going to be absolutely unstoppable. It's not going to be maybe, we're all going to be doing that, right? And we're all being trained, we all have Siri and other kinds of junk we're using. We're not using it to the full advantage we'll be using in another few years, right? And so your students at UTD should be looking at this stuff a lot. This is nice talking to you.
Just a quick question, other than Northrop and Grumman, are you working with any other aviation corporations?
No, but we'd like to. We've been talking to Textureon because their pilotless helicopter's coming out. Yeah, but they thought it was 5 years away. One thing that surprises us is that not everybody's on this bandwagon that should be. And so talking to their engineers, they thought this was years away because they're so slow to move, and I can understand that with avionics. I mean, that's do or die stuff, right? But even RealWear, if you guys know RealWear, the head-gear guys, they've got great tools. We just met with them recently, and they also thought it was years away. And of course, we didn't say, well, really, we're already working with HoloLens. It isn't real far away. It's like right now. But we're trying to work with them with a group that we'll go unnamed, that they're already working in pharma and other industrial biohazard type environments. Again, hands-free suits using, there's places voice really makes sense. Offshore oil rigs, biohazard, pharma, medical, we can name a bunch of them. But that's the kind of thing we're looking for, those kinds of markets. We're not saying we're going to be an Alexa or Google Home. No, that's not at all what we're playing. We're playing in edge solutions primarily.
Did you bring business cards?
I also have, I got a little thing, if you guys care enough, I can give you a little 2-pager here just talking about the same, actually more than that, talks more about our features. Of course. But I do appreciate you guys taking time to listen to me, because I love talking. Thank you very much, Ed.